Okay.
All right, are we good now?
Yes, it is
Is it
recording.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, hi friends.
Hi.
So I wrote my formal QHQ on the first half of Song of Myself, because I like Walt Whitman. And my initial question was, do Walt Whitman's views on empathy for the human condition and reverence for others' work set him apart from the Transcendentalist movement? And what I found was essentially yes, it does. Because I'm gonna be kind of like, this is gonna sound stupid when I say it, but I found his poems to be unpretentious, and I find a lot of transcendentalist work to be kind of pretentious and sort of condescending. So basically, some of the points that I hit in this were he does have some similarities to the Transcendentalist movement, most notably his emphasis on the importance of nature and its positive influence on the self. So he obviously writes about himself a lot. The book is called Song of Myself, so that's very like individualism, like transcendentalist. But there are also elements in Song of Myself that are distinctly different from the Transcendentalist movement. And they kind of place him in a different category than writers like Emerson and Hawthorne. I said that transcendentalism, like at least my interpretation of it, maybe this is wrong, has like a reverence for work that you do that really just benefits yourself and betters yourself. Whereas Walt Whitman kind of expresses this reverence for work that contributes to the benefit of everyone, and he's very respectful of other people's professions. So he writes, "Hurrah for positive science! Long live exact demonstration! Gentlemen, to you the first honors always." So clearly he has respect for all kind of work, including science, and we know that the transcendentalists were kind of pushing back against the Enlightenment movement. So they were kind of getting away from, okay, we need to stop relying so much on like science and reason and facts. But Whitman kind of goes back to that and says, hey guys, like facts and science is actually pretty cool. I don't really understand any of it personally, which he actually does explicitly write. Your facts are useful, and yet they're not my dwelling. But, you know, pretty cool. Good job, science. And so I kind of said, like I said, it's sort of in opposition to like what Hawthorne was writing about when he wrote The Birthmark, which is pretty much like, okay, science, stop. He also has this huge level of like empathy for other people. He constantly writes about understanding and having empathy for the plights of like women, Native Americans, and slaves. He says, whoever degrades another degrades me. And that kind of carries through on several of his poems in Song of Myself. He also clearly believes that all humans are kind of on the same term as like spiritually, and they should be treated equally as well. In 19, like the 19th little poem that he writes, I will not have a single person slighted or left away. The kept woman, sponge or thief, and are hereby invited. The heavy-lipped slave is invited, and the venerally is invited. There shall be no difference between them and the rest. So he's kind of like, you know, everybody is on the same level as far as like spiritually, and they should also be treated on the same level as society. And he's very welcoming to diversity, which is extremely American, like very like American values type guy here. And I said, although there are not instances of obviously transcendentalist writers like advocating for oppression, Emerson's essays are just kind of condescending. He kind of says, like, I'm going to tell you all these things that I think are great, and I think that I'm great, and whatever I do, like, that's my problem. It's not your business. Whereas Whitman is kind of like, everybody, let's come together, and let's all kind of, like, talk about ourselves, and definitely just, like, I don't know, he's very, like, kumbaya. And I also wrote that because of this, there's kind of a distinct, like, I would say, like, there's definitely, like, he makes a divergence from that in placing yourself above the whole of humanity and like contributing to your community. And even though he writes about himself, he has just this huge empathy for other people. And I also wrote pretty much as my conclusion, Whitman writes about humanity more as like a whole that's made up of people living their lives and like doing their thing. And all the people that he writes about are very honest. While transcendentalist writers as a whole more write about humanity as like a collective of individuals, Whitman kind of writes it as like everybody working together. And so that's why I say that Whitman's poetry does contain some like elements of transcendentalist writing, but it is definitely distinct from the transcendentalist movement because of his different views on like humanity, the betterment of human knowledge, and scientific progress. And then so my final question that I ended with was, do Walt Whitman's views on humanity translate to a belief in and advocacy for racial and gender equality? Thank you.
Yes.